What is up, everyone? So today's video, we're going to be going ahead and assembling and getting ready the blow-off valve for the ProCharger on the truck. So I'm going to be going ahead and installing this Tial, however you want to pronounce it. Anyways, it's spelled T-I-A-L, so Tial, whatever. Anyways, I've used this before on some of my turbocharged builds, and I really like the way it sounds, especially with the amount of volume of air that ProCharger is going to be producing. This should sound really great. So the one that's on there right now, you can hear it, it's audible. You guys can check out the previous videos, and I can actually post a sound clip right now of what it sounds like. So that's what the current one sounds like, and it doesn't sound all that bad, but it's just not that audible, it's not that loud. And not to sit there and say that I want to be one of those people that's kind of like, you know, Ricer or something where it's really annoying, but this will just really give a bigger presence, so you really will be able to hear this a lot better. But there is a few things that we have to adjust in order to get this to work. First off, you're going to see that on the top we don't have any ports. So I'm going to be installing, and I have it somewhere here, but I'll pull it out in a second, but here it is actually. So I have to, if you guys saw my previous videos, on all my builds, I usually use these push to connect fittings. So we're going to be putting that in the top, so I'll show you guys that. And this just makes things nicer. Like, it does actually, the kit comes with these hose barbs, so you could put this hose barb on it, and it would just sit there with a hose barb, and then you could just get your rubber line and shove it on. But I've done away with all that stuff on my kits, or not kits, but this kit. And in the past, on all my Supercharger, turbocharged stuff, I always put these push to connect fittings on, because they end up just making things a lot nicer when you have to work on stuff. You don't have to sit there and remove an ugly hose clamp and, you know, yank this thing off of a barbed fitting. And these fittings are super cool. You just push on them and the line releases. One thing you do just have to be conscious of is heats, because it's polyurethane tubing, but you can get heat sleeves and stuff like that. I've had them right next to a turbo manifold and no issues. But anyway, so we'll put that, we'll install that on the blow-off valve. So that's one step. Other thing is, pre-installed in this blow-off valve is a 10 PSI spring. So we're obviously not running 10 PSI, and that's for more of a turbocharged application to keep this thing sealed. So you can see it has, hopefully you guys can see that. So you can see this diaphragm inside, right? So this is the piston that goes up, and there's a diaphragm and a spring inside. So hopefully you guys can see that there. So I'm pushing against the spring pressure right now, and it has a stiffer spring in there than what we would need to make this whole thing work. So how this works is you have spring pressure, and then also you're gonna have vacuum on here. And so essentially what happens is when this vacuum line is hooked up, when you're under boost, this is hooked up to manifold pressure, so the boost pressure is gonna fill up the diaphragm in here and keep this valve closed so we don't leak boost. And then what happens is when you let off the gas, the system's gonna be in a vacuum state, so you're actually gonna be producing vacuum when you let off the gas, and that's gonna create a suction in here inside this diaphragm and pull this valve, or help to pull this valve open. Only thing is, we have another spring here, which is for Supercharger applications, so it's a softer spring. So what we're gonna do right now is, like I said, I'm just getting all the stuff together and getting it ready for you guys, or for myself more or less, but we're gonna take out these screws. So there's a series of Allen head screws on the perimeter of this. We're gonna remove it, and I'll show you guys what's inside, and then I'll also show you another thing that goes along with this. Okay, so first things first, I just threw that in there just to show you, but let's remove all these screws. And removing these, again, you are going to have to conscious of the spring that's in behind here. There's going to be spring pressure that's going to try to fight you on this. So I've always just overcome it with my hands. There was a setup where I was running about 23 PSI where you actually had to run double springs. And so Tial or Tial, whatever, they actually sell various diameter springs for their wastegates and their blow-off valves, so you can actually have an inner and an outer spring, similar you might see on like a valve spring setup on a car engine on a head. But what I usually do is remove most of them and then just leave two opposing screws installed and push down and take them apart. So I'll show you that right now as we get most of them out. And again, this is all in efforts to put this lighter spring inside, so I'll compare the two springs when I get them out as well. So now that we only have 2 screws left on this whole thing, I'm going to push down at the same time and remove these last 2 springs or screws. And like I was saying, we kind of have to fight the spring pressure. So we're pushing down at the same time as we remove this screw. It's not going to be too crazy. Like I said, if you had a serious spring in here because you're running a lot of boost, then you might have to worry, but just the stock stuff isn't too crazy. So there you go. Boom, so there. So now it's let out and we can go ahead and see what we got. Okay, so here's the 2 springs that we have. You can see just the diameter of the coils. So this one is very easy to squeeze. It's a softer spring. This one, bigger coils, much harder. I can't squeeze it more than that with just my grip. But this one, you can see I can compress it almost all the way. So we want to go with a softer spring for this Supercharger setup. So again, we're just going to throw it in. And it was actually the softer one already in there. It was supposed to be uninstalled, but I wanted to compare and double check. So anyways, it's always better to double check stuff rather than just assume. So we're going to push this down. And once that is fully seated, we'll get 2 screws just installed and started here. And like I said, you kind of have to fight the spring pressure here just to get things rolling. And you guys probably saw the diaphragm that's in there too, so you want to make sure when you're putting this back together that you don't pinch that diaphragm, because that could lead to all sorts of problems as well, which isn't all that hard to do. So just make sure when you seat this down that you're a little bit careful as well. Alright, so let me install the rest of these screws and then we'll move on to the next step. So now that the screws are all tight, we can go ahead and install our push to connect fitting, our 90-degree fitting. It already has like a Teflon coating on there, so we don't have to worry about putting any more Teflon tape. We're just gonna put this on, snug it up. We don't have to go crazy on it, but just enough to seal. So the next step in this whole process is typically you would have a flange like this, and this flange would connect to the blow-off valve like so, and you'd also have this rubber gasket. So the rubber gasket would go around here, or O-ring. You know, you'd stretch it around. Sometimes you have to kind of play with these a little bit. So anyways, the rubber O-ring would sit like so, and then you would put this on here, and you would put your band clamp on here. But what we're going to be doing is I already purchased a 3-inch diameter pipe with it already welded, so that we don't have to worry about welding this. And since the ProCharger kit already has something similar like this for the current blow-off or bypass valve, this is going to be kind of a plug and play for us. So all we'll do is we'll have the blow-off valve installed, take out ProCharger's 3-inch pipe, which is identical to this. We'll slip this in and we'll be rocking and rolling. So let's go ahead and install the blow-off valve on here so that we're ready to go. Alright guys, so here we are. This is what is going to be installed on the truck. So we have our push to connect fitting, we have the correct spring in here, we have the V-band clamp holding it to a 3-inch T, and that's pretty much what we're going to need to install this on the ProCharger system. So we're going to try it out. Full disclosure, I got this one off eBay, so I've had, you know, authentic Tial blow-off valves in the past, and this one I'm not, even though the build quality looks pretty good, I'm a little bit leery on the sourcing of where I got this from. So I'm not sure if it is necessarily an authentic one. We'll try it out, see how it works. But this whole setup, this T piping, this aluminum, you know, beveled or bead edged T, it actually was pretty affordable. I think this thing I got for cheap. It was like 20 bucks. And the blow-off valve was about around 80 bucks, I want to say. So the whole setup's around $100. So we'll see. It's gonna be a cheap solution. Worst comes to worst, I may have to invest in an authentic Tial or Tial spring for this unit. And if that still doesn't work, then I might end up actually getting a real one. This thing here, there's not really too much to worry about. You can't really screw this up as long as it has a flange on it and it has, you know, the 3-inch here. This weld looks decent, so there's not really anything to fail here. It's just we, you know, in the name of all of our budget conscious kind of mods that we're doing, we're gonna see how this thing performs. And if it doesn't perform, I'm not gonna be upset by it. It's just part of the fun, but it should hopefully sound pretty good, and we'll try that out. So anyways, guys, this thing is ready to go. We're gonna install this on the next video, so be sure to tune in for that, and we'll do the install. It's not really much of an install, it's just a matter of taking that other one out, but the truck's buried on the other side right now, so we're not gonna get to it tonight. But I did wanna get this fully prepped, fully ready to go, so it's as simple as slipping off the coupling on each side, putting this in, hooking up our vacuum or boost line, and we're ready to go. So anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did like it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Check out all the other videos on the content on the channel. If you're stopping in for the first time, we've covered a lot of ground and we will continue to do so. But as always, guys, thanks so much for your support. We're also on Instagram if you want to follow along there. It's the same spelling, at Booze Motorsports. Wherever you guys want to follow along is cool with me. Thanks again, guys. See you on the next video. Take care.